How would you tell the new mothers of today that how should they actually reclaim themselves? While, of course, enjoying motherhood and nurturing for your child, how do you not forget yourself?
Yeah, well, this is what I like to say is that the days are long, but the years are short. And all of this is going to go by in the blink of an eye. Like it goes so quickly. Everything that you do, if it's for your child, they're going to get to the age of 18 and they're going to go to college or get a job or, have their own life. Even if they're still living at home in some capacity, they're going to want to be their own person. And so the whole job is to set them up for that kind of responsibility, that kind of independence so that they can live on their own.
And Reena, since you and I both come from, the Indian subcontinent, we have these social constructs or social conditioning that happens where these roles are really actually, all these responsibilities are put onto the mother more often than not. Probably the younger parents now, that kind of role is changing and they're more involved. Fathers get more involved and I'm hoping that they do. But do you think it's a very cultural thing?
My advice to somebody who feels like they are in that space is to just take a minute and remember who you are. And sometimes that gets a little bit difficult because you've been told who you are. But really, you are love. At the end of the day, we are all love. And so I would say in those moments where it feels tricky, where it feels hard, where it feels like you haven't slept for weeks and you don't know when this is ever going to end, just take a couple seconds, put your hands on your heart and just take a couple deep breaths in. Feel that heartbeat underneath your hands because that's where the love comes from. Not only for everybody else, but also for yourself.
Hi, and welcome to TBH, To Be Honest with Natasha. If you are a mom, we've all been there. Waking up before everyone else, packing those lunches, crazy mornings, driving kids to school, trying to do things for yourself, handling the emotional temperature of the entire household. Yes, if you are in the same place as I am, then this conversation is for you. Because whatever we do in our lives, it's usually for everyone else but us. And the wild part is, while everyone around you thinks that you are fine, they think you've got it all together, they think you're a super mom, tiger mom, helicopter mom, whatever tags they give you, inside there's this quiet voice that is going, what about me? And today's guest heard that voice. She has had 2 degrees, one in engineering, one in nursing, and she has her very own podcast. And she is trying to make a difference in her own way. Give it up for the lovely Reena Sifer, who is a transformational guide, a spiritual mentor, a human design reader. We're going to find out what that is all about. The founder of Luna Wellness and a mom. A warm welcome to the show, Reena.
Thank you so much, Natasha. I'm so honored to be here. And this topic is very near and dear to my heart because I've seen so many moms, my own included, suffer because of everything that you're already talking about. So let's talk about that.
Wonderful. Before we get to motherhood and how we need to put ourselves first, and that's the reason I have named this episode Finding Myself, not Finding Nemo. But before we get to that, a little bit about you. When I made the intro, I was like, she's an engineer, a nurse, and a spiritual guide. I mean, how does it even come together?
Well, it comes together very nicely, I think, actually, and they're all connected, even though they seem like they're not. So when I was younger, I'll give you a little bit of background. When I was younger, I was really good at math, and I always liked to build things. And so my dad was an engineer. My sister was an engineer. I was an engineer. And my dad said, if you don't know what to do, you're really good at math and science, do the thing that makes you the most amount of money. Then it was chemical engineering. And I said, okay, I'll go do that. So I did it. I didn't love it. I made some really good friends in chemical engineering, but the subject alone, I remember being in my interviews for job opportunities afterwards, and they were asking me how a refrigerator worked, or I went to a paper mill and I was like, no, No, I don't feel like this is the path for me, but I got my degree, I graduated. If nothing else, I had that to fall back on. So I worked for a year and decided I was either going to be a teacher or a nurse. And I hadn't decided which one because I love children. Like I love children. And so I knew that alternative medicine was always in the back of my head. I did my high school senior project in science was on acupuncture back when nobody even knew what that was. I remember my mom taking me to an old acupuncture clinic, and the lady did not speak English. She gave me some needles, and I remember taping them up on those foam boards. I'm really dating myself with that, but I always had that interest, and so I was like, I'll go do nursing. I know I don't want to do engineering, so I love helping people. I love the wellness space, so I went and did that. I graduated. I got a job being a pediatric nurse for 15 years locally, and I loved it because I loved children, and that was what I wanted to do. Then I had my own kids. And I had my own kids, going to work, working nights and weekends, long hours, long shifts, taking care of not only but those children, but the families too, because when you have a pediatric patient, you're also taking care of the parents. It's not just the kid that's sick, right? It's the whole family involved. And so after I had my own kids, it was like, I'm running out of steam. I don't know how to manage the time, the nights, the overnight shifts, everything that went to do with that, and be a good mom. I was definitely not doing both at the best capacity. I was burnout. And then my now ex-husband got a job offer over in Germany. And he said, if we go, you don't have to work. I was like, sold. Let's go. um,
Okay.
yeah, so I needed a break. Like I had three kids, they were young, and we needed a break. I needed a break. So while I was over there in Germany, I went back to some of that wellness. I had space and time and capacity to actually go back to learning the things I was interested in before. So I went back and I did yoga. I learned how to do yoga all over again. I mean, my dad did yoga at home, but this was different, right? Like I needed to do it from my own space. And I got my yoga certification. And from there, I learned how to do Reiki and all sorts of energy healing. And the beauty of it is that so much of this energy work that seems kind of spiritual is actually so much connected to science. It's very science in nature for me. And that's why my podcast is called Practically Spiritual, because it is intertwining the science with all of the energy and everything, because to me it's the same thing. And just showing people that they can have this whole area of wellness that maybe they haven't tapped into yet, because Western medicine can take you only so far. And if you're not actually incorporating everything, I mean, I feel like you need both, right? You need the energy, you need Western medicine, you need everything combined in order to actually be holistically whole. So, long story short, that's where I am.
Wow, what a journey it has been, Reena. And I have so many questions that are popping in my head right now. Now, I would think being a pediatric nurse, you would be prepared for motherhood. So, was that the case or not?
I mean, on some aspects, right? I mean, I know the human body. I understand how it works, maybe how it doesn't work, but I don't think anything really prepares you. I mean, we took the prenatal classes, we did all of the birth plan, we did everything. And none of that worked out the way that we thought it was going to. I don't think anything can actually prepare you for motherhood except for doing it. I mean, people would say you should sleep, but while you can, you should do this, you should do that. And I was like, yeah, I'll be fine. No, it was definitely a different situation when you get into motherhood itself. And, I mean, I think some of the changes physically, mentally, emotionally, it's really important to know how to support yourself through those changes, because nobody can actually prepare you for that in a way that you don't understand how it's actually going to happen until you go through it. But having the right people in your corner when you are actually going through it is probably the most important part.
So, before we delve into what you do and your beautiful podcast, how was your experience of motherhood, Reena? Because I'll share a little bit of mine, but I want to know your story first.
Well, I was only married for a year when I had my first. So I was pretty young. And there were definitely things I wasn't ready for, but I knew I wanted to be a mom. I mean, I loved children. I knew that this was the thing. I feel like I'd prepared my whole life just to be a mom, right? So I got into being a mom. I was pregnant. I loved it. I loved being pregnant. My relationship with my now ex-husband was a little bit difficult. And so I would have definitely done things differently had I known some of the things I know now. But I do think what I learned from motherhood in general is that when well, I was the firstborn. Let's just start with that. I was the firstborn on my side of the family. My parents are Indian, and I grew up in a semi-traditional Indian household. And being the firstborn on both sides of my family, who were also firstborn parents, there's a lot of pressure, right, to do things a certain way. And I understand that pressure. I just didn't fit that mold, not very well. And it was difficult for me because I knew, like, inherently that something was going to be different for myself. But I didn't know what that was. And so it was easier just to do things as people told me to. And so it was like, well, when it came to, and even like I remember trying to nurse the baby, it was a really difficult time for me. It seemed like it should be easy, but it wasn't. And I just knew I was going to do it though. And I didn't give up. And I remember being in the bathroom 3 or 4 weeks into it. And it was like 2 o'clock in the morning, and he finally latched on. And I was like, oh, I did it. I did it. Right. And these are the things, like I said, people don't
Yeah.
tell you how difficult some of this is. And meanwhile, everyone's like, just give him a bottle. He's not eating. It's not. And I'm just like, could you, like, I just needed the support. I needed someone to tell me I could do it. And that was just one example. So I hope I answered your question, but that was basically how I went through things the entire time with the first one. By the time the second one came around, I knew a little bit more, but the second children are always just a little bit feistier. um,
Yes, you can say that again.
yeah, yeah, they just have a little bit of a extra spirit to them, we'll just say, and it's never the same twice, I don't think, So that one had its own challenges, and by then you have one at home, and trying to navigate the two again with a difficult marriage to begin with. Things were not easy, and I didn't have a support system. I don't feel like not that I needed, and nobody gave me permission to say just take a nap. Nobody said that to me. It was definitely, and then we had the third a little bit later, a few years down the road, and by then I figured out my older two were older. They could be more helpful. The second one was still spirited, but the first one was very, very responsible. And when the third one came around, I was like, oh my gosh, you're here to save me. And I can actually like enjoy being his mom. It was a different experience altogether. So yeah.
I hear you. I hear you, Reena. For me, I had my twins, right, and they were my first pregnancy. So you can only imagine I'm having my first experience of motherhood, and it's twice the fun, twice the
Yeah.
chaos, twice everything. My husband used to travel at that time a lot, and you can only imagine after they turned 17 days, he had to travel. So I have dealt
Mhm.
with, of course, managing two babies, um, learning about how to be a mom. Then you have all these expectations and the
Mhm.
only expectation I was given is that you need to be lactating. You're that, absolute. I felt like a cow at that time, that
I bet with two
everything that
babies.
was
Yeah.
two babies, you have to eat for two, you have to have these awful porridges, which were actually nutritional, but they all actually just assisted lactation. There was nothing more to it. And I felt that that was my only identity. Uh,
Mm.
my husband was traveling. I remember nobody told me that, you can put, so because they were my first babies, Reena, I went into this hyper protective mode, and I said, I'm not going to put Pampers for them. I'm going to use cotton,
Yes.
those, they call in Hindi langotis or wraps or whatever, cloth wraps or whatever. And I used to try to do that so that they wouldn't get nappy rashes. I mean, why? I look at myself right now, I'm like, why did I even inflict that on myself? But nobody said,
Mm.
Natasha, just give it up, just put the pamper. It's okay. They will survive. But nobody told me that. Nobody told me You're going to have emotional outbursts because you're going to feel the postpartum depression. So, along with the twins, when they were crying at 3 a.m. in the morning, the mom is sitting with them and crying as well in the bedroom with no one knowing what's going on. It was absolute chaos. And then my third came when the twins were 1 year, 3 months. So he is a surprise, I would say a surprise package.
Yeah.
But you can only imagine what I went through. But the first 5 years was an absolute blur. I wanted to be a mom, right? Like you, exciting. But
Yeah.
no one prepared me for it. And when I talk to moms right now, I tell them, be kind to yourself. Um, and talking about another aspect of one is your postpartum depression. I forgot how to sign my own signature.
Um,
It was, the mommy brain. No one
yeah.
tells you about it that it's
Yeah.
okay. In fact,
Yeah.
my spouse was like, "Oh, you forgot how to sign. Like, what do you?" But they didn't know any better. I didn't know any better. So,
No.
yeah, now when we talk to moms, I think they're more aware. I mean, with your work, Reena, do you see that moms are now more aware, and even culturally, because I'm looking at North America, I think the moms here are more aware of about their needs, or am I wrong? But in India, I think it's a changing pattern, but still the emphasis is completely on the child.
Yeah, it can be on the child. And I think that people mistake children, and they are to some extent, as fragile. And yes, they are fragile. However, they are far more resilient than we give them credit for. And
Hmm.
it's okay to take care of you. It needs to be both. If you don't take care of yourself, you can't fully take care of a baby. there's there's not, it doesn't work like that. And I think that we were taught the opposite, right? Like, give everything to the child, make sure the child is safe and cared for, because they don't know how to do it themselves. But what we're really modeling in that situation is that we make it okay for them to self-sacrifice because they're watching us do it. They're watching us sacrifice ourselves, so that that's what they learn that they are also supposed to do. But I do think that the new generations, to answer your question, I do feel like people are more supported. I do feel like I don't know if it's the internet, I don't know if it's just, general awareness that's come online. I think that people do realize that they're not going to stand for that anymore. And some of it is watching the older generations be so physically unable to carry on because they have given and given and given, that there is nothing left for themselves, that there's very little in the way of their own world that they have left even for themselves. On a physical level, mental, emotional, I think all of those levels, they had given so much to the family and the child that they didn't have anything left for themselves. And that's not really our job. I don't know if that's shifting or if that's how it's always kind of been, but I feel like our job is to contribute to the fabric of the world, right? On some level. And whatever that looks like for you, maybe it is through motherhood, maybe it's through the career you choose, maybe it's through volunteer work, whatever that is, it could be okay as long as you get to choose it, right? Not something that somebody told you were supposed to do. And I think that's the distinction now.
And this is where your very beautiful podcast, Practically Spiritual, comes in. In all your interactions, I've seen that there have been some interesting conversations that you've had. How would you tell the new mothers of today that how should they actually reclaim themselves while, of course, enjoying motherhood and nurturing for your child? How do you not forget yourself? How do you keep yourself intact?
Yeah, well, this is what I like to say is that the days are long, but the years are short, and all of this is going to go by in the blink of an eye. Like it goes so quickly. And so all these, everything that you do, if it's for your child, they're going to get to the age of 18 and they're going to go to college or get a job or, have their own life. Even if they're still living at home in some capacity, they're going to want to be their own person. And so the whole job is to set them up for that kind of responsibility, that kind of independence so that they can live on their own. That's my goal anyway, to raise my kids so they can be self-sufficient. And by doing that, we have to show ourselves we are also being self-sufficient. So it's more about modeling. This is how you do things instead of saying, I'm going to do this all for you. Right. And by doing that also comes into the idea of you get to do things for yourself because you are also important. You being the mom, right? The mom is also important. And I'm going to show you because I'm going to take this time out for myself. Because otherwise, what's happening, what I see is that cycles are starting to repeat where, and I have 3 boys. And so this is really important to me. Having 3 boys is not saying that when you go and have your own relationship and your own family, that the person that you choose to be in relationship with is not going to be your mother. It is not her job to do those things, right? So the goal is that how can you be a partnership? How can you make sure she has time for herself as that you also have time for yourself? It's breaking those traditional roles that say this is the only way, this is your only job. That if you don't start making that, advocating for yourself in that way to create that self-care for yourself, you're just telling other people that you're not important. And sometimes waiting for somebody else to tell you that you're important is the problem. If you have to decide that for yourself, you decide that you're important. And that's how you get to reclaim your own space and your own self-care, because no one's going to give you that permission. Maybe they won't. What if they do? What if they don't? But if they don't give you that permission, you're the only person who can give it to yourself. And I don't know. I feel so passionately about that. I don't know if you can tell, but I feel like if you don't give that to yourself, no one else is necessarily going to. So if you're waiting for someone to say, no, go take off time for yourself, you deserve it. It's like, you already know you deserve it. And if you don't, I'm here to tell you, you deserve it. So go take time for yourself.
And I wish someone had told me this when I was younger. Reena, would you agree with me that this kind of realization about your self-worth, your sense of self happens after 45?
I
Because
think that, yeah. I mean, I think it can. I do think so. I'd see it more often anytime after 40, I think,
yeah,
really.
after 40, yeah.
Yeah, is that where I've seen people being like, I'm not doing that anymore. Nope, this is going to be different for me. And I have some theories on why that is. But I feel like the younger generations are coming to that. They are saying that this is important. And I think that both sides of the partnership, when you have family, when you have 2 parents, the mother and the father, like they're doing this, raising the children together. And I mean, I have a younger cousin and her husband is very involved. I mean, sometimes he'll take the kid to get his diaper changed. And sometimes she will. I mean, he'll make sure that she's getting time to eat by herself and he'll take the kid. And you see this kind of like back and forth, like they're a team. And that's what I would really like to see, is that it being more of a partnership, not just one person's job. Because that you need a family, you need a village.
And Reena, since you and I both come from, the Indian subcontinent, we have these social constructs or social conditioning that happens where these roles are really actually, all these responsibilities are put onto the mother more often than
Yeah.
not.
Mm-hmm.
Probably the younger parents now, that kind of role is changing and they're more involved. Fathers get more involved, and I'm hoping that they do. But do you think it's a very cultural thing?
Absolutely. And I don't think it's just our culture. I have seen other cultures that, the job for the mother is to be the mother. However, so many things, and I don't know how it is over in India now or any of the other worlds, but what I can speak about is here is that not only are we expected to continue to keep that job on our own, to be completely in charge of the house, the dishes, where everybody is, their schedules, their calendars, like literally everything. The mental load is so big, but we are also trying to build careers and paths and a name for ourselves, while everybody else just feels like I don't want to say everybody else, but a lot of people have that expectation that we uphold that role while we are also trying to create our own, or sometimes hold both. I mean, one of the expectations in my ex relationship was that not only did I do all of those things, but I also made money and had a job, right? Like, so it was a lot. It was a lot. And I think that just because we can doesn't mean we should. And women are strong. I mean, we have the capacity to do it, but that doesn't mean that that's how it needs to be. There's definitely room for it to be a little bit more, I wouldn't say, maybe I am saying equal, more equal in a way that feels holistic, because that's what the child is going to see and that's what the child is going to feel. So from the energy of the family as a unit, you want the child to feel whole and secure from the whole surrounding, not just from one element, right? So I don't know. I just think it's so important for it to be less on the mom and more distributed.
And while we, say that the mom can manage both home and hearth, I believe even the father can, the dad can. So I
Yes.
think, let's give them a little bit of a whatever confidence boost here and say that they can too, and they shouldn't doubt themselves, right? Now, any practical tips for moms who are new moms, like they've just had a baby and they're saying, oh, we cannot find time to you know do something for ourselves, we're so, the baby is small, the baby needs us, and you hear that. So what kind of practical tips would you give them so that they find things or activities to do for themselves?
I think the only activity a new mom should be doing is sleeping.
Oh yeah, you bet.
Um, Yeah, but it's a from a wellness perspective, when you're
Yeah.
when you're thinking about that, if you don't have your health, nothing else matters. It's not going to matter if you use plastic diapers or cloth diapers. It's not going to matter if your baby has only organic food or the food that you can afford. It doesn't matter if, it's a matter of prioritizing what is actually important to you. Your health and your well-being is a direct correlation to how your baby is going to grow up. If you give them everything but don't give yourself anything, they're going to feel that too. And there's a term called co-regulation that I like to talk about, because co-regulation from a scientific standpoint is that whatever energy the mother has, the baby also has. It picks up on that because it's looking to you for guidance. And so it is very important from a co-regulation standpoint that you do have a good energy, that you do take care of yourself, that you are well rested, well nourished, because the baby subconsciously, energetically picks up on whatever frequency that you're putting out. And so if you don't take care of yourself, you're also suffering. The baby is also suffering, is what I'm trying to say. Baby is also feeling it, whether that's your intention or not. And so sleep is important. Good food is important. Asking for help is important. Saying this is, entrusting your own instinct. There are so many times I think that you'll go to the doctor and you're like, I think something's wrong with my baby, or like, this doesn't feel right. I know my kid. And the one rule that I know I always held to when I was working as a nurse is that the moms, they know their kid. And if they're telling you something's wrong, you should listen, because that's not something that the Western medicine can tell you out of a textbook. It's not a textbook kind of situation always. It's like if the mom says that something is wrong underneath, maybe look a little bit deeper. And ultimately, that's why I left the bedside nursing, is because it felt like it was always, this is how we do it, and there wasn't any space for more. So that's a different story, maybe. But I think, to answer your question, it's take care of your physical human body, because when you are well rested, well nourished, you have the energy then to take care of something else. It's not the baby first. It's you and the baby.
And while we take care of our physical self, Reena, I know it's the Mental Health Awareness Month. How can a mom really take care of her mental health? Are there things she can do while she's busy nursing and feeding and hopefully sleeping or catching
Yes,
on some
hopefully
sleep?
something, right? I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
like I said, there Co-regulation works in different ways. I mean, it goes from human to human, but there's also an energy called coherence. And coherence is that the heart field transmits energy 27 feet a radius around you, which is why you understand when you walk into a room or you come into somebody else's energy that you're like, ooh, this doesn't feel good. I don't really, I don't trust that person. You have that sort of vibe, right? So it's important to keep your vibe kind of high. And how you do that is like when you're nursing, put on music that feels good to you, right? If you are in soft lighting, that's going to contribute to your mood. If you have a cozy blanket that feels good to you, like spend your time kind of, it feels like you're spoiling yourself, but really this is like the bare minimum of the things that you can do for yourself. And it doesn't feel like it's a luxury necessarily. To me, it's a necessity that you are comfortable, that you are happy, that you find the joy. And the postpartum can be really hard, especially if you have postpartum depression or things like that. And so it is noticing that if your mood feels off, checking in not only with yourself, like even if you have to close the bathroom door for 5 minutes just so you can breathe in and out 7 times without somebody needing you, you get to do that, because any of those little moments that you can be mindful for yourself and come back to your own body is going to make all the difference, not only for you, for your family, but for your baby. And if that's the goal, is to raise a healthy, happy baby, it definitely starts with you.
That's beautiful. That's
Yeah.
beautifully put, Reena, and such beautiful, poignant reminders for new moms. If new moms want to get in touch with you with all the spiritual stuff that you have in store for them, how can they get in touch with you? And of course, you want to give a plug to Practically Spiritual as well. Where can they hear this very beautiful podcast?
Thank you so much. Practically Spiritual is on every platform. You can find it on Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio. So check it out. It's called the Practically Spiritual Podcast. And you can find me on Facebook, on Instagram, lunawellnessllc.com is my website. And the Practically Spiritual was born from the idea that it is science and spirituality. And when I talk about spirituality, it really is all the things that are intangible. And my goal is to make the things that are intangible more tangible, like mindfulness, like meditation. It's not necessarily some sort of faith or belief necessarily in the fact that I am denominational in any way. It is more of how are you taking care of your soul and your spirit, whatever you believe in. It is not channeled in one direction or another, but it is mind, body, and soul. Or spirit. And all those things, when they are aligned, make you a whole person. And you get to come and do what you came here to do as the best version of you.
And at the beginning of the show, I did mention that you're into something called human design. So probably a very brief insight into what that is all about, and can it help the new moms?
It can absolutely help the new moms. So human design is a system. I call it like an energy system. And it takes a bunch of modalities, ancient wisdom, the Vedic astrology, the I Ching, the Kabbalah, like all these ancient texts, and puts them into one system that tells you how you are made to use your own energy. For example, there are people who are meant to take more naps than other people. I know that's weird to say, but there are people. Yeah, right. It's so fascinating that there are people out there who can just keep going. But if you're in the minority of the people who just can't keep going like other people can, and you think that you feel bad because you're like, why can't I keep going like these other people? Something's wrong with me. Human design actually gives you the permission to use your energy how you are designed to use your energy, not how somebody else told you to. And that's what I absolutely love about it. So yes, it can help new moms because it gives you permission and validation to do things your way when the world is telling you that that's not quote unquote normal. It is just what is normal for you, and you get there faster instead of learning the hard way. That you just weren't built to do things that way. You get to do it your own way. So I absolutely love it. I have never found anything more accurate in my life.
Beautiful. Now, before I let you go, Reena, if there is any advice you would give to any mom who's listening to us right now, whether they're folding the second laundry basket or they're, driving their kid to school, or they're just wondering, hey, I don't know what I'm doing right now. I'm feeling so lost. I don't know what is my calling, all these questions that come. I mean, is this really me? And they're kind of trying to find themselves. What would be your advice to them? A few words, maybe?
Mm. My advice to somebody who feels like they are in that space is to just take a minute and remember who you are. And sometimes that gets a little bit difficult because you've been told who you are. But really, you are love. At the end of the day, we are all love. And so I would say in those moments where it feels tricky, where it feels hard, where it feels like you haven't slept for weeks and you don't know when this is ever going to end, just take a couple seconds, put your hands on your heart and just take a couple deep breaths in. Feel that heartbeat underneath your hands, because that's where the love comes from, not only for everybody else, but also for yourself. And that everybody who has been a mom has gone through everything that you are feeling and thinking right now. And it is completely common to be in that space. But above all else, remember that you are human, and that's it. That's enough.
And I would also like to add that you are not alone, because if you find a sisterhood who understands who you are, you will find yourself as well.
Absolutely. Yes. Especially the people who can see you, hear
Yeah.
you for who you are. Absolutely. Yeah. Sometimes we do need a mirror and we can't see it for ourselves. So that village is very, very important. You are not alone. Absolutely.
And if you're going through any kind of depression or some, if you think your mental health needs intervention, please seek professional counseling as well. I want to emphasize the importance of that. Back home, things are changing, but there was a time when seeking professional help for your mental health was really not a thing, or it was looked down upon. But things are changing. But I just want to remind new moms as well, you can actually access mental health professionals to help you through that time as well.
I agree completely. Mental health is very, very important, and it is incredibly imperative that you take care of yourself on that end. And asking for help on that level is not a weakness on any by any means. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so very much, Reena, for spending your time with us, for sharing your beautiful insights with us. It was really a pleasure. And thank you for giving us, that is TBH with Natasha, your precious time.
Thank you so much.
If today's conversation spoke to you, go find Reena. She's at lunawellnessllc.com, on Instagram and Facebook at Reena Sifer. That is REENASIFER. And her podcast, Practically Spiritual, is where you can listen to her. You can also get a free human design chart on her website. So thank you once again, Reena, for your time. We'll see you again with another topic sometime on TBH with Natasha.
Looking forward to it. Thank you.
And that's a wrap with another episode of TBH with Natasha. If this conversation hit home, share it with your friends, especially with the one who never puts herself first. She needs to hear this. I'll see you next time.